The next speaker is Dr. Victor Fung, Group Chairman of Fung Group, and he's going to talk about Hong Kong as a service hub and business integrator for China. Dr. Fung.
Marvin, Tony, Vice Chancellor Andrew Hamilton, Angelina, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here today. And before I start, I would like to really commend the organizers for really taking serious effort on this leadership and public policy program and this series. I frankly feel this is long overdue. And really, as a major part of creating a robust civil society, a platform like this is absolutely essential. And I really like to commend the effort. And I also commend the efforts of my friend Vincent Loh, who is sponsoring this. Without him, we won't be here today. Being the last speaker today in this wonderful series, I'd like to perhaps put Hong Kong a little bit more in a regional and global context. I know there are very important and serious issues that we need to address internally. In fact, my own view is one of the most serious problems we have globally, not just in Hong Kong, is the really equitable distribution of income. But I also feel very strongly that it's not possible to address that in isolation. One has to think about, at the same time, growing the economic pie so as to facilitate the redistribution. And you cannot just say, let's focus on that and not worry about the other. Because I can assure you, if the economic pie is shrinking, that'll make the redistribution issue infinitely more difficult. So what I like to do is to really round up this series by actually placing Hong Kong in a bigger context. I've updated my topic a little bit. I've actually have a written speech, but the good news is I'm not going to read it for you. I'm going to just make a few comments on this. And it's really a vision, in my mind, for Hong Kong in the new age of multilateralism. And great, very important things are happening in that sphere. And I think it has tremendous impact on Hong Kong and our future on a regional and global context. Let me just quickly report to you, just take a few minutes to tell you there was a major event in the global economic scene, global trade, multilateral trade scene, at a major trade ministers conference that took place in Bali in December of last year, just now. The Bali ministerial basically was a resounding success for multilateralism. And I think that's not a very small thing to say. Because frankly, since the establishment of the World Trade Organization 20 years ago, we have not seen one success from this multilateral negotiation. In fact, everybody has heard of something called the Doha Round, which was actually there for 12 years now. And basically, nothing has come of that. And the multilateralism, everybody agrees, for the past 60 years, it has done huge, it's lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, etc. It's done huge amount for the world. But in the last 20 years, the whole multilateralism process has stalled, and we have to recognize that. Nothing was happening to the Doha Round. People were saying the Doha Round is dead. Well, Bali was the breakthrough that shows that multilateralism is not dead. And what happened, I won't bore you with the details. What is actually quite important, what happened was that they took a very wide agenda from the Doha negotiation, took a part of it, about 25% of it, and implemented that. And that dealt with very mundane issues on how to make cross-border trade more efficient, harmonizing duties, regulations, and so on. But importantly, it reduced the cost of cross-border trade by about 10 to 15% when this program is fully implemented. It would result in about $1 trillion of additional GDP for the world every year. But most importantly, it will create about 21 million new jobs. And the better news is most of this would actually accrue to the developing countries, not the developed countries, the developing countries. And it's spreading the wealth where it's most needed. So this breakthrough in Bali is huge. I'm just so sad that it hasn't been covered adequately in the news. There was some, and the people in the trade, so to speak, are very much aware of it. But what this actually does is the following. Because of the stalling of the whole multilateral process for the last 20 years, everybody was saying, including all my friends in the business world, say, okay, we love multilateralism. That is the right way. That is the equitable way globally. But it's not working. So let's go to second best. We're going to do a lot of bilateral deals, free trade agreements. Those are okay, provided they are built on the solid bedrock of the foundation of the multilateral system. And the foundation was cracking. And what we would really stand the danger of deteriorating into a world in which it was just a jungle, where I'm sure the wealthy countries will be very happy, thank you very much. They'll do deals among themselves to the complete exclusion of the developing and the poorer countries. There'll be an underclass of economies that will be excluded from the world. This breakthrough in Bali puts multilateralism back in center stage. That is now reinforcing the confidence that multilateralism, the equitable system that has taken us so far in the last 60 years, is going to be now on the front lines again. Not that the bilaterals are no use and what we call the mega regionals, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, that you hear a lot about. Not that those are not useful, but let's fix the foundation before we actually do more decoration of the fifth floor. Let's put it that way. Okay, I mean, eventually you want to do that, but let's get the foundation done. So this is very important. Now, how is this impacting Hong Kong? And that's really what I want to do is Hong Kong, in entire memory, I would say from the very beginning, founding of the port, we really stand for the rule of law in international trade. We're a tiny economy. We don't have anything to retaliate with. We don't have a domestic market. We have no bargaining chip. But I can assure you that in the international arena, when we stand up to talk, people listen. Why? Because we stand for the rule of law in international trade. We stand for what is right. And I think that moral position, that moral authority is in my mind, one of the most important basic values of Hong Kong in a global context. And now, unfortunately, with the decline of multilateralism, that has lost its weight. But now with the reintroduction of multilateralism to the fore, Hong Kong, I think, is now re-emerging to be in the center of the stage and it being the main proponent of multilateralism. And I think that is very important. I think we should know that the whole multilateral system has served the world very well up to now, but it does need updating. And I think we need to lead the effort in terms of updating the multilateral world to today. Give you an example from the trade area. When the GATT was founded 60 years ago, we had 50 members. Today, we have 160. So this idea that you need complete consensus to pass anything is just not workable today. So we need to update some of those decision-making rules. And this is what is really happening. Now, as we were developing as part of the multilateral system, what Hong Kong, in terms of its role in the region and in terms of external environment, what were we really doing? We were really the mega hub in the Asian region that were mediating flows in the region. And there are 4 categories of flows in my mind that are very, very important. The first is obviously the flow of goods, which I just talked about. We have zero duty, and we facilitate the flow, transshipments and everything. In fact, Hong Kong has become, in that context, the manager of global supply chains. When China's economic opening came in 1978, we basically evolved the idea that you could actually do parts of the production process in different parts of the world and then reassemble them. And this dispersed manufacturing model was the creation of Hong Kong. And basically is what we manage today. And it provides countless opportunity and jobs for our people in terms of managing the flows which not taking place in Hong Kong, but outside of Hong Kong. Okay, so that is one important. The second one, of course, is managing the flow of people, the flow of talent. Flow of talent into the mainland, from the mainland throughout the region, etc. The third flow is the flow of funds. You know, we intermediate the flow of funds, and most recently, of course, as we continue to establish and strengthen our position as the regional financial center, we're now taking the lead on the internationalization of the renminbi. That's the latest flow that we're intermediating in a major way. This is the major center for the flow. So it's goods, it's people, it's goods flow, people flow, funds flow, and last but not least, it's information flow. That's what we really, and knowledge flow. And I think we're really a major hub for that, and we need to strengthen what we can do there, and especially as we get into the internet age, the role that we can play. So as we establish ourselves in the region, and as we become a major part and proponent of this multilateral system, we're really then becoming a major hub for the intermediation of these flows. And that's how I envision the competitiveness of Hong Kong, is how are we able to facilitate these flows? What we have concentrated on over the years is to make these flows stronger. Think of them as pipes. We want to reduce friction in the flows. We want to take away any barriers to the flow. We want to develop new connections of pipes to different parts of the region. And in this context, the way I would envision ourselves in a very sort of graphic context is, imagine yourself looking at the map of Asia. You're looking at the map of Asia. I would submit that Hong Kong really is at the center of an hourglass. I see an hourglass. Hong Kong is at the neck of the hourglass. Above Hong Kong would be the Chinese mainland, Japan, Korea, Northern Asia. And below in the hourglass is the ASEAN countries, India, Australasia, etc. I would submit that we're absolutely positioned with our hardware and software, the air hub, you know, the port, etc., to intermediate all the flows in these four areas that I just mentioned between the northern part of Asia and the southern part of Asia. And I would say for the next 30 years, that's probably the most important flow in the world, is the flow from the northern part to the southern part of Asia and the intermediating that flow. And that is really where we should really be centered. And I think we have played that position. We now have the opportunity with the repositioning and re-establishment of the multilateral system for the whole world would enable us to do that. So with this as the vision for the city in terms of external connectivity and external competitiveness, so what is the status? I must say the last 20 years have not done Hong Kong a lot of good. There's been growing everywhere in the region, especially bilateral and regional arrangements. You know, the one that we're most active in is APEC, where we are actually a member. But we are actually a separate customs territory, which we have always been, but we're not a sovereign country, obviously. We're part of China. So a lot of these, you know, 10+1, you hear about this ASEAN, China, free trade area and so on, are all participated in by sovereign countries. And we've been excluded from these developments. So that is important, that is serious. But if we return to a multilateral world, it's not dependent on these regional deals or bilateral deals. It's back to the WTO, where the units of participation is the customs territories. And then we are a full participant, and indeed a very active participant in the WTO. And that repositions Hong Kong now in center stage. And I think we are now able, with this development in Bali, this breakthrough in Bali, we're able to use that to reposition ourselves on a global basis. And I think that has tremendous opportunity and development possibilities for the future. My own feeling is, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, that if Hong Kong can continue to really think of ourselves as a way, as standing for the rule of law and international trade, the success of Hong Kong, a small, open economy, really symbolizes the success of free trade and multilateralism. A victory for the multilateral trading system, in my mind, is a victory for Hong Kong. So as Bali has put the WTO back in the driver's seat for global trade expansion and reform, Hong Kong really should use this as a great opportunity to rejuvenate our multilateral platform, to strengthen its economic ties with the countries around us, obviously with the Chinese mainland, which is our country, but very importantly, establishing stronger and stronger ties with the ASEAN countries and also other countries in the region. If we're able to do this, I think it's only natural that once you have the local connectivity within Asia, everybody in the world will want to connect to you if you're the hub of Asia. Because Asia is where the whole world is going and where the center of gravity of economic development in the world is moving. So that is absolutely essential. So we should really work to make the multilateral system more effective and productive, as trade and investment, in my mind, is the best way to expand the global economic pie and ultimately enable us to really reach a more equitable and sustainable future. So thank you very much.